The story of the Alaska Purchase is often told as a simple tale of American ingenuity. It's the popular narrative of a shrewd deal, a diplomatic masterstroke. This narrative suggests the United States acquired a vast, resource-rich territory for what amounted to a pittance. The headline, often cited, is that Alaska was purchased for pennies. The price tag is indeed striking, $7.2 million. When you do the math, that works out to roughly 2 cents per acre for an enormous land mass. This simple calculation fuels the popular image of an unbelievable bargain. It seems almost too good to be true. However, the reality of the Alaska Purchase in 1867 was far more complex. It was a nuanced event filled with skepticism, strategic calculations, and uncertain outcomes. The story isn't just about a price tag. It's about the perspectives, motivations, and historical context surrounding the deal. The deal was brokered by President Andrew Johnson's Secretary of State, William Seward. Seward was a visionary, but his vision for Alaska was not widely shared at the time. In fact, the proposed purchase faced significant opposition within the United States. Many Americans were openly hostile to the idea. A prevailing view at the time was that Alaska was essentially worthless. It was seen by many as nothing more than a frozen wasteland. Critics described it as a useless expanse of ice and snow, devoid of any real value or potential. The idea of spending millions on it seemed absurd. The sentiment across the nation was largely one of skepticism and even ridicule. The public and many politicians struggled to see the point. Critics quickly coined derisive nicknames for the acquisition. They dubbed the purchase Seward's Folly. Another popular mocking label was Seward's Icebox. These names reflected the widespread belief that Seward had made a terrible mistake. The public struggled to understand any potential strategic or economic value in such a remote and frigid territory. Why buy ice? Adding to the skepticism were the economic hardships the United States faced following the devastating Civil War. $7.2 million was a considerable sum for a nation recovering from conflict. Spending that much money on what seemed like a frozen wilderness felt irresponsible to many. The focus was on rebuilding the nation, not expanding into the Arctic. From the Russian perspective, the decision to sell Alaska was driven by a complex set of factors. It wasn't a sudden impulse, but a calculated move. Russia, under Tsar Alexander II, faced significant financial difficulties in the mid-19th century. The Crimean War had been costly and had strained the imperial treasury. Furthermore, Russia faced the potential for future conflict, particularly with Great Britain. British North America, which would become Canada, bordered Russian America. A conflict in North America seemed increasingly likely, and Russia knew it would be difficult, if not impossible, to defend its vast, remote Alaskan territory against British forces. Selling the territory was seen as a pragmatic way to recoup some much-needed funds. It was a chance to get something back from a possession they might otherwise lose entirely. The sale was also viewed as a way to avoid a potentially costly and unwinnable war over a distant colony. Better to sell than to fight and lose. Russia also recognized the growing influence of the United States in the Pacific region. American expansion seemed inevitable. They believed that selling to the United States was a strategically sound move. It would put the territory into friendly hands rather than potentially hostile ones like Great Britain. Selling to the U.S. could also create a buffer between Russia and Great Britain in North America. It was a geopolitical calculation as much as a financial one. While the $7.2 million price tag seems low in retrospect, its actual value was debated even at the time of the purchase. Context is crucial. For the U.S. government, in 1867, $7.2 million represented a significant sum. It was roughly 0.5% of the entire federal budget at the time. To put that in perspective, that would be equivalent to spending over $3 billion today based on the current federal budget size. It wasn't pocket change. The significance of the sum must be considered within the economic climate of the post-Civil War era. Resources were scarce, and priorities were focused inward. Moreover, the purchase included more than just the land itself. It wasn't an empty wilderness being acquired. The treaty included existing infrastructure that the Russians had built over decades. This included settlements, trading posts, and administrative buildings. It also included the rights to exploit the natural resources within the territory. While the full extent wasn't known, the potential was part of the deal. This included known resources like furs, which had been the primary driver of Russian presence, and the potential for others. The purchase was for the whole package, not just the acreage. Immediately following the purchase, the benefits were not at all apparent to most Americans. The skepticism seemed justified in the short term. The initial years saw very little economic activity or development by the United States. Alaska remained remote and largely ignored by the general population. The vast territory remained largely unexplored by Americans initially. It was difficult to access, and the focus was elsewhere. For nearly 3 decades, Seward's Folly seemed like an accurate description. The investment appeared to yield little return. However, a dramatic turning point occurred in 1896 with the discovery of gold in the Klondike region, just across the border in Canada, but accessed primarily through Alaska. This discovery and subsequent finds within Alaska itself dramatically changed the perception of the territory. The frozen wasteland suddenly held immense promise. The ensuing gold rush brought a surge of settlers, prospectors, and entrepreneurs to Alaska. Towns sprang up, and infrastructure, albeit rudimentary, began to develop. The gold rush transformed the territory's economic landscape almost overnight. It proved that Alaska held immense, tangible wealth. Ultimately, the Alaska purchase proved to be not a folly, but a remarkably shrewd investment for the United States. The initial price seems minuscule compared to what followed. The territory's vast natural resources have generated billions, if not trillions, of dollars in wealth over the past century and a half. The initial $7.2 million was repaid many times over. Key natural resources discovered and exploited include not only gold, but also massive reserves of oil, valuable timber, and incredibly rich fisheries. These resources continue to drive Alaska's economy. Beyond the economic windfall, the strategic importance of Alaska has proven invaluable to the United States. Its location is critical. Its strategic importance includes its vast coastline and position in the North Pacific, providing a crucial foothold in the region. Its proximity to Russia has also been a key strategic factor, particularly during the Cold War and in modern geopolitics. Alaska is the closest point in North America to Asia. The long-term benefits, both economic and strategic, have far exceeded the initial investment of $7.2 million. The pennies per acre narrative gains its power from this eventual outcome. The Alaska purchase solidified its place as a pivotal moment in American history. It was a bold expansion that, despite initial doubts, paid off immensely. It transformed the United States into a two-ocean power with a significant Arctic presence. The story of its acquisition is far richer and more intriguing than the simple, "purchased for pennies" headline suggests.